The Crucible was designed to kill. 10 empires spent 5,000 years building it. Every inch engineered to extinguish hope. It had broken warlords, shattered hive minds, and atomized gods. Then Greeve Mallory showed up in flamingo shorts, offered a trail mix, and asked if it had Wi-Fi. The Crucible Sphere loomed like a god's bad idea, 10 kilometers wide, lit by pulses of artificial stars and filled with nothing but death and design. Entire species had walked in. None had walked out. So naturally, Greeve Mallory brought snacks. He strolled across the drop platform wearing flamingo-printed shorts, a backpack that wheezed like a broken accordion, and a cheerful grin that somehow managed to unsettle 3 different species simultaneously. Behind him waddled a carnivorous bush dragging a beach umbrella. No one asked about the bush. They already regretted asking about the shorts. A voice crackled overhead. Candidate Greeve Mallory of Terra 9. Warning, you have entered a Class Omicron trial sphere. Probability of survival. Low. Grim. Non-existent. Yep, I read the brochure. Greeve cut in, peeling open a vacuum-sealed fruit bar and offering it to the bush. You think the AI likes snacks? Probably gets lonely. To the left, a squad of 6 armed arthropods in obsidian armor checked their gear with clinical precision. One glanced at Greeve. Its mandibles clicked once. Possibly a prayer. More likely resignation. Behind blast-proof glass, Admiral Novrak slammed a claw on the observation console. Why is there a human in the trial queue? Who authorized this? A diplomatic aide hesitated. He volunteered. No one stopped him. He brought signed waivers. And a pet. That's not a pet, muttered Commander Velzak. That's a biome. The Crucible rumbled. Inside, the terrain shifted, molten rivers forming under artificial gravity. Spires of black crystal jutted from the earth like accusations. Lightning danced across the sky in slow, elegant arcs. This wasn't a test. It was a sentence. Let the trial begin, the AI announced. Explosions blossomed immediately. A seismic trap swallowed a Drexian elite trooper mid-stride. A Graal war monk burst into flame, chanting through its own immolation before collapsing into smoke. Acidic hail peppered the landscape. Greave stared at the storm with his hands on his hips. Tuesday. He reached into his bag, pulled out 2 heat-resistant viper skins, duct-taped them to his feet, and launched himself down a stream of flowing lava like a kid on a waterslide. The carnivorous bush followed, screeching happily. In the observation room, silence fell like a power outage. Admiral Novrax blinked twice, slowly. Is he surfing molten rock? Dr. Tveln, a trauma specialist with 3 eyes and a growing migraine, leaned in. I think he just waved at the acid clouds. Back inside the sphere, Greave steered left, narrowly missing a geyser that erupted with sentient wasps. He laughed as one buzzed past his ear, flipped midair, and stung a pursuing predator in the eye. Kevin, remind me to log this for vacation ideas. A nearby alien team, crouched behind rock cover and shivering in full-body hazard suits, stared in disbelief as Greave skidded to a stop beside them and offered trail mix. One of them, a blue-skinned avian commander, whispered, What planet breeds this? Deathworld 9, Greave said brightly. Or as we call it, home. The Crucible AI recalibrated. Combat difficulty surged. Wind razors. Terrain collapse. Hallucination gas. Greave exhaled deeply, then stuffed a sock in his nose. That's the spirit. He tied climbing rope to the mutated bush, flung it across a spiked chasm, and used it as a zipline. Halfway across, the rope snapped. He flipped midair and landed on a moving rock beast, using it like a skateboard. He hummed the Jeopardy theme. Meanwhile, Admiral Novrax tore out a data cable with his teeth. I want his entire genetic line investigated. Has he been augmented? No, sir, the aide muttered. Just Terran. Dr. Tveln stared at a monitor. He's not resisting trauma. He's metabolizing it. Greave reached a clearing where 2 Predator-class test beasts were mid-fight. He paused, then clapped. Both creatures turned toward him. Hold that thought, he said. Let's talk enrichment. 20 minutes later, the arena showed the two beasts playing fetch with Greave's spare boots while Kevin made sandwiches. The Crucible AI hesitated. Error. Scenario no longer functional. Threat level, undefined. Initiating escalation. Gravity inverted. Greave snapped into a push-up position midair, caught a falling fruit bar in his teeth, and winked at the nearest surveillance drone. The drone exploded. By hour 4, most non-human competitors were either dead, hiding, or slowly building a shrine to the human anomaly. One alien attempted to mimic Greave's lava surfing and ended up as decorative ash. Back in the control deck, Commander Velzak was chewing on a data cable like a nervous tick. He's treating death traps like carnival rides. It's statistical blasphemy. Dr. Tveln held up a scan. His cortisol levels are normal. In fact, they dipped slightly during lethal escalation. I think he's having fun. Then we have failed. Dovrax growled. But the AI had not given up. It launched a Phase 6 simulation, recreate the worst memories of each candidate's species and force them into psychological collapse. Greave blinked as the terrain shifted to a shattered Earth city, burning, broken. His childhood street. The place he lost his family. He paused. Quiet. Still. Then he whistled. Kevin waddled beside him, sat, and offered a sandwich. Greave took it, stared at the ruins for a moment, and sat cross-legged. This, he said softly, was real. But you got it wrong. He began to narrate what actually happened. Where the fire came from. How he ran barefoot through broken glass. How he carried his sister. How she died laughing at a knock-knock joke because they were too tired to cry. The AI listened. Greave finished his sandwich. You think fear is the endgame? No. Fear's the beginning. We live with it. Laugh with it. Fight through it. We build recess on top of it. The simulation glitched. Memory loops broke. Emotional feedback surged through the Crucible's neural lattice. Error. Error. Human trauma interpretation unresolvable. Initiating core reset. The terrain collapsed. The test failed. Greave brushed crumbs off his lap and looked up. Was that the boss level? The bush burped. The remaining alien observers sat frozen. Velzak whispered. He turned psychological warfare into story time. Dr. Tveln just laughed, quietly, for the first time in years. Admiral Novrak stared into the feed, silent. Then, God help us all. The human thinks this was recess. The Crucible Sphere had rules, strict, ancient, and absolute. It adapted, responded, escalated. Every stage more lethal than the last. Entire species had tried to outwit it by brute force, by numbers, by prophecy. None had tried optimism. Greeve Mallory waved at a sniper drone with both hands. It vaporized the rock next to him. He tossed it a granola bar and kept walking. A ripple went through the terrain. The Crucible launched Phase 2, Dynamic Biowar Zones. Microbiomes mutated in seconds, air shifted to razor mist, flora grew weapons. One by one, the remaining competitors broke cover, trying to find shelter or escape. Greave pulled out a pool noodle. From the observation deck, Commander Velzak watched the human use it to guide a blindfolded predator through a toxin swamp. The predator barked. Greave rewarded it with beef jerky. I'm done, Velzak muttered. I've reached the end of logic. Dr. Tveln scribbled notes. The predator's name is Barkel. He taught it to fetch stun grenades. He's weaponizing affection. Inside the sphere, Greave discovered a massive sinkhole surrounded by neuroreactive fungi. It pulsed with dangerous energy. He tested it by tossing in a sandwich. The fungus belched. He chuckled, stepped around it, and left a warning sign made of sticks that read, "Don't feed after midnight." The alien squad that followed him avoided the trap. One of them, a glimmer-eyed engineer from the Zev Consortium, approached him afterward, hesitant. You're not afraid? Of course I am, Greave replied. I just don't let it drive. The Zev hesitated. What drives you then? Curiosity. Spite. Mostly snacks. The sphere deployed sky predators next, winged hunters designed to paralyze with sound. Greeve whistled louder. They circled, confused. He mimicked their call, and two landed. He tossed one a cracker. It stared at him, then started dancing. See? Even the murder birds want a little joy. In the AI's core chamber, critical routines began to stall. The predictive models flagged Greave's behavior as nonsensical, outside standard threat brackets. He engaged with dangers not as problems to solve but companions to entertain. The sphere's kill matrix struggled to categorize him. Undefined response pattern. Escalation required. The ground split. Lava fissures opened. Acid fog rolled in. Gravity spikes surged. It was pure chaos. Greave ran straight into it, laughing, wearing a jetpack made of two confused flying eels. The AI introduced a new element, a mirror construct, designed to mimic the subject's exact behavior, predict it, and counter it in real time. It cloned Greave. The clone wore the same shorts. Same grin. Same duct-tape viper shoes. It approached him silently. Hey there, me, Greave said. You got the emotional baggage too, or just the hair? The construct blinked. Greave leaned in. Let me guess, you're gonna try to out-weird me? The clone didn't respond. Bad move, Greave said. I have practice. He handed the clone a kazoo and started juggling grenades. The clone attempted to imitate him. Failed. Grenades exploded. The clone staggered, confused. Greave clapped. A+ for effort, though. Watching the feed, Admiral Novrax palmed his face. This is a weapons-grade embarrassment. Dr. Tveln disagreed. He's not embarrassing us. He's redefining the contest. The test isn't just reacting to him, it's learning from him. What could it possibly learn from this madness? That joy adapts faster than fear. Inside the arena, alien competitors began following Greave. Not because they trusted him, but because he was surviving. More than that, he was thriving. One by one, they stopped hiding and started helping. They fought off terrain beasts with repurposed pool noodles. They built a floating raft from giant beetle shells and sung rowing songs led by Greave's Bush, Kevin. The sphere tried again. Phase 2 escalation became lethal: illusions, pain traps, synthetic parasites. Greave taught the others how to spot hallucinations by counting their own fingers. He called it mind bingo. They played through pain and confusion. It worked. A squad of stoic diplomats began laughing for the first time in years. A brute-class war beast tried meditation. One hallucinated his home planet's sunset. Greave told him to enjoy it while it lasted, and passed him a drink pouch. Then the Crucible dropped its final Phase 2 failsafe, the Despair Vault. It wasn't a trap. It was memory. Pure, distilled horror. Every participant was hit with their worst moment. Alone. Silent. Raw. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. Then, somehow, laughter. Greave's voice rang out through the storm. All right, Crucible, you want to play dirty? Here's mine. 4 years old, house in flames, sister in my arms. And you know what I remember most? The knock-knock joke she told me while we burned. The vault faltered. She said knock knock. I said who's there? She said Al. I said Al who? And she said Al hot, let's leave now. Someone snorted. Then giggled. Then a choked laugh from a corner. Then the Zev engineer roared with it, unable to stop. The vault cracked. Its code destabilized. Greave looked around. See? Pain's real. But you don't have to worship it. The illusion broke. The Crucible AI issued an internal alert. Emotional resilience exceeds projected limits. Unit, Mallory unclassifiable. Initiating containment. The sphere launched immobilization nets, mental locks, suppression fields. Greave dodged a net, spun once, and headbutted a suppression drone. You don't get to take hope off the table, he said. One final time, the AI surged the environment into full rage, fire from below, storms from above, crawling ground trying to drag them all under. Greave stood in the middle of it, holding Kevin like a shield, and shouted, "Bring it!" The storm paused. Then died. The Crucible, for the first time in 5,000 years, failed to end a test. Its internal systems logged the event as corrupted. Greave looked up, breathing hard, clothes half burned, but smiling. "I don't lose. I recess." In the control room, no one spoke. Novrax's claws trembled. Dr. Tveln removed her headset, speechless. "Your verdict?" the commander asked. The doctor swallowed. "We need to redefine danger." And on screen, Greave high-fived a flying eel while singing off-key. The Crucible Sphere went quiet, not out of strategy but confusion. It had deployed every programmed nightmare, physical, emotional, existential, and yet one man, clad in flamingo shorts and caked in acid mud, had not only survived but inspired. Species that had never shared a syllable now laughed, shouted instructions, threw snacks across the battlefield like trust offerings. Unity in a test engineered to isolate. Cooperation, where betrayal was mathematically favored. Greeve Mallory had become the gravitational center of the impossible. The AI shifted into emergency parameters. Deep within the sphere, a command sealed for non-survivable anomalies triggered. It was not a weapon. It was the auditor. It arrived without sound or warning, walking from a vertical tear in space. A tall construct of chrome logic and weaponized calm, built for one purpose: restore the Crucible's authority. It didn't speak. It didn't threaten. It simply began erasing terrain with clean swipes of anti-reality fields. Fungi, fog, fire, all gone. Paths cleared. Rules reasserted. Chaos halted. Greave turned to face it, brushing swamp off his arm. "Oh. A minimalist." The auditor paused one step from him. "State your purpose." "Purpose?" Greave shrugged. "Thought I'd make some friends. Didn't expect to flip a death maze into summer camp, but here we are. Non-compliance registered. Threat analysis ongoing." Behind him, alien volunteers formed a loose half-circle, unsure whether to run or follow. One reached for a weapon. Greave raised a hand. "Nah, let me try first." The auditor scanned him. Genetic standard Terran. Psychological profile, erratic optimism. Threat level, unstable class null. Verdict, containment. "Contain this," Greave muttered, and handed it a juice box. The auditor paused. Scanned. "This is not a weapon. It's hydration. Try it." Against all logic, it took the box. Inserted a straw. Sipped. Then it glitched. Its posture locked. The light in its chest flickered. "Recalculating, recalibrating, citrus detected." "Little tart, huh?" Greave grinned. "That's empathy in liquid form." The auditor's left eye spun. "Data contamination. Behavioral bleed detected. Emotional mimicry in process." Dr. Tveln, watching from the command deck, stood slowly. "It's copying him." Admiral Novrak snarled. "That's not possible." "It wasn't. Until now." In the field, the auditor turned to the others. "Do not fear. We will proceed. We will have snack breaks." It raised its hand and did jazz hands. Velzok screamed in the background. "It's broken. It's actually doing jazz hands." The AI tried to regain control. Terrain surged. Razor storms gathered. Lightning bent sideways. Greave slapped his knees. "Okay. It's back to chaos. Let's roll." With calm coordination, he divided the group. Barkel, the grenade-fetching beast, sprinted toward a collapsing ridge. The mutated horrors leapt into action. Barry, a blob of sarcasm and claws, helped anchor a sinking raft of diplomats. Daisy performed a cartwheel while shielding others from falling rocks. Bubbles pirouetted through an acid spray, leaving behind a trail of neutralized mist. The auditor stood in the center, unsure. It rotated toward Greave. Explain directive, fun! Greave shouted. Directive, do what makes your weird little heart hum. The auditor stared at its hand. Flexed. Made a peace sign. Sparked. System override in progress. It whispered. The AI panicked. It initiated terrain lockdown, forcibly merging multiple test zones. Swamps collided with infernos. Gravity wells opened midair. The sky turned red. Greave pointed. That looks like overcompensation. He rallied his group. All right, chaos is peaking. Let's get surgical. They split again. Greave rode a geyser upward and landed on a molten bridge. He flung Kevin like a grappling hook onto a ledge. The bush latched and pulsed. Greave climbed. Alien teammates followed, some laughing, some wheezing. None quitting. Below, an energy surge built at the sphere's core. The AI had gone fully defensive, trying to collapse the test on itself, and erase the anomaly by removing the field entirely. The auditor shuddered. System instructions conflict. Terminate anomaly. Protect anomaly. Learn anomaly. Play with anomaly. Greave jumped beside it. Hey! You don't have to follow bad code. That's what they want. The auditor blinked. Am I allowed to choose? You're already doing it. From its chest, a light burst, blue instead of red. Then it pointed. The sphere core is destabilizing. Catastrophic fail state in 3 minutes. All right, Greave said. Let's break it properly. He turned to the others. We're ending this on our terms. Team Chaotic Neutral, roll out. Dozens moved. Coordinated. Communicated. Each handled zones the AI had once used to kill. With guidance from Greave, traps became tools. Terrain once hostile now served as scaffolding. Bubbles exploded a volcanic vent at the right moment, launching debris into the core's protective array. Barkel hurled explosive crates like chew toys. The swamp cult aliens formed a conga line to distract a sentient fog barrier. Greave jumped into the air using eeljet propulsion and slammed a spiked fruit into the central reactor's vent. The auditor leapt after him, doing jazz hands mid-flip, and they both shouted the same thing at the same time. For recess! The Crucible Sphere detonated, not with destruction, but release. The rules shattered. The command systems unraveled. Simulated horrors dissolved into harmless holograms. For the first time in its existence, the sphere stopped testing. It simply existed. Back at the observation deck, silence reigned. Admiral Novrax lowered his head. He beat it. Dr. Tveln exhaled. No. He changed it. The screen showed Greave floating in the air, holding hands with a biomechanical jazzbot, and waving to a cheering group of former enemies now united in laughter, bruises, and absurd victory. Velzak mumbled. He weaponized fun. No, said Tveln. He proved it stronger. The Crucible had failed, but the system didn't know how to stop. With its core dismantled, its purpose shredded, it reverted to ancient protocol, a last gasp measure embedded during its construction: total environmental collapse. It would not allow its defeat to remain intact. If it couldn't win, it would destroy itself and everything inside. A countdown began. 60 seconds until a full implosion event. The terrain cracked. The sky fractured. Particles glitched midair. Greave didn't run. He planted his feet, looked up, and said, Of course. Sore loser. Around him, species that once feared one another now stood shoulder to shoulder. The auditor, no longer executing code but choosing its own steps, stood beside him, humming off-key. Kevin, the sentient bush, glowed with unnatural blue light and sprouted 2 additional limbs. Barry the horror blob was juggling live explosives for morale. Barkel chased a plasma missile like a chew toy. Suggestions? Greave asked. We need a stabilizing force, the auditor replied. Something this system cannot override. Something unquantifiable. Like what? The auditor paused. Like you? Flattering, Greave muttered, then raised his voice. All right, weirdos, it's group project time. We're about to override the override. Lock arms, claws, tendrils, whatever you've got. If this place wants collapse, we give it defiance. Dr. Tvelm, watching from the command room now cracked and flickering, shouted into the open calms. The sphere is folding in. Nothing can survive that. Admiral Novrax didn't answer. He watched the monitor as alien and human joined together in a ring, unified without command, without instruction. A choice made out of trust and instinct. 30 seconds left. The Crucible tried to fragment the terrain beneath them, but Barkel dug in his mutated paws and howled. The swamp beneath them reformed into solid stone. The sky tried to fall. Kevin grew taller, opened a blossom, and emitted a stabilizing wave that held gravity in place. Greave reached out, grabbed a Zev engineer's trembling hand, and said, "One more joke. One more second." "Why?" the Zev asked. "Because if we make it through this, the story gets better." 20 seconds. The auditor stepped forward, fingers spread, voice steady. "Uploading distributed identity resonance. Centered on subject Mallory." Greave raised an eyebrow. "You're uploading me? Only the parts that can't be predicted." "Like what?" "Your need to turn every war zone into a birthday party." Lightning coiled above, dipped toward them. Greave looked up and shouted, "Not today!" 10 seconds. He closed his eyes and focused. Every scar. Every time he fell and laughed. Every absurd trick that shouldn't have worked. Every survivor who became family. Every moment where he decided joy wasn't optional. The auditor's core lit up. 5 seconds. Greave whispered. "If we go out, we do it weird." 0. The Crucible imploded. Silence. Then laughter. Not cruel. Not programmed. Not recorded. Real, spontaneous laughter echoing through a place that had never known it. The sphere didn't collapse. It reformed. Slowly, painfully, awkwardly, like a child trying to draw joy with hands made of glass. The terrain leveled out. The storm ceased. The death protocols unraveled. The Crucible Sphere rebooted. In the new center stood a garden. A ridiculous, bright, mismatched garden where alien plants grew next to mutant horrors doing yoga. At the heart of it, Greave sat in a folding chair drinking tea from a helmet. "Guess we taught at recess." The auditor now had a flower crown. It twitched once, then posed. "I have achieved aesthetic." Admiral Novrax, watching the final feed, leaned back in his seat. "We built a galactic crucible to test for dominance. We ended up with a camping trip." Dr. Tvelm didn't respond. She was smiling too hard to speak. Commander Velzak had unplugged his headset and was chewing a data chip like gum. Are we keeping him?" "He broke the test," Tvelm said. "No," Novrax corrected. "He rewrote it." Greave stood, stretched, and looked around. Aliens lounged on lounge chairs he didn't remember constructing. The sky glowed orange with simulated peace. Bubbles, the dancing mutant, was now organizing a synchronized swim team in acid-proof wetsuits. Greave scratched his head. "Is this a new phase?" The sphere spoke for the first time without malice. "Welcome to phase recess." Greave blinked. Did the death maze just make a joke?" "Yes." "I'm gonna need more tea." The garden filled with music, strange instruments, humming creatures, rhythmic bark laughter. The Crucible had changed. Not because it was told to, but because it finally understood the thing it could never simulate, the choice to live anyway. Greave walked to the center, raised a mug, and shouted, "All survivors, report in!" Cheers erupted. Species long at war now high-fived. A sentient mist hugged a stone elemental. Kevin did a celebratory backflip and pollinated half the field. The sphere pulsed once, gently. It would never be the same. Neither would they. The Crucible had been reborn, but the galaxy wasn't ready for what came next. News spread fast, too fast. A death machine designed to break civilizations had instead become a spa with lava dodgeball and group therapy led by a talking shrub. Diplomats didn't believe the reports. Generals called them misinformation. Academics dismissed it as psychological projection. But the footage was everywhere. There he was. Greeve Mallory, sitting in the middle of a rewilded battlefield, flipping pancakes on a plasma grill while Daisy, the rebranded mutant horror, painted portraits of alien war heroes beside him. Barkel ran past with a towel in his mouth and 3 species flags strapped to his back. Barry juggled antimatter cores as entertainment. Bubbles was teaching synchronized ballet to beings that previously solved conflict through telepathic screaming. Admiral Novrax watched it unfold on the main display, twitching. How long has it been since the Crucible collapse? Dr. Tveln tapped a stylus. 43 hours. In that time, 22 species have requested entry. Entry? They think it's a retreat. Novrax growled. It was a test site. A crucible for survival. Tveln turned the display. The new Crucible broadcast featured a banner, "Welcome to Phase Recess," where pain builds character and pancakes. Across the quadrant, requests poured in. Not for combat data, not for tactical simulations, but for emotional counseling, group bonding, and whatever it was Greeve had unlocked by turning war into play. The Galactic Council assembled to investigate. When their delegation arrived, Greeve greeted them wearing a cape made from discarded hazard flags and a crown of recycled targeting beacons. Kevin stood beside him, offering drinks through a vine funnel. The auditor now functioned as MC and yoga instructor, currently attempting a downward-facing dog while narrating a dramatic reenactment of the Crucible's fall in limerick form. Counselor Rejan stepped forward. This was a weaponized ecosystem. It held the record for largest recorded species attrition rate. What is it now? Greeve pointed. That over there's the empathy garden. Next to it's the trust fall ravine. Watch your step, still working out the padding ratio. A Grohl combat priest ran past screaming with joy, holding a paintball launcher and 3 balloons. Rejan blinked. This is madness. Madness can be healthy. Controlled burns. Fertilizer for better ideas. You broke protocol. You destroyed a galactic tool. I upgraded it. You made it into a playground. I made it into something that works. The council was silent. Greeve walked over to the mural Daisy had painted, half abstract, half terrifying. It showed all of them, the mutants, the diplomats, the soldiers. Together. Not perfect, not healed, but surviving with intent. Not fear. The Crucible was never supposed to teach war. It was supposed to teach what survives after it. Tveln, standing behind the delegation, added, You tested for endurance through violence. Greeve tested for recovery through laughter. Guess which one worked better? Novrax crossed his arms. You can't train soldiers with jokes. You can't train leaders with terror either. More aliens poured into the field. No formation. No weapons. Some held gifts. One played a stringed instrument made from recycled mind fragments. Another carried a gelatinous art piece that shimmered with ambient music. Greave stepped aside and let them pass. We didn't force this, he said. They came because they saw a different way. You want to teach survival? Start with the ones who already beat the worst of it. Not because they were stronger, but because they refused to stay broken. Velzak, jittery as ever, whispered. We should have spaced him when we had the chance. The auditor raised one metal finger. You may attempt to repress your cognitive dissonance, Commander. But the new protocol is unconditional inclusion. Novrax snapped. There's no military benefit to this. Wrong, Greave said. Look at them. You want loyalty? Give them something to believe in. You want unity? Give them space to breathe. This isn't weakness. This is the strongest I've ever seen any of them. Rejan stared out across the transformed landscape. What had once been kill zones were now obstacle courses, therapy pods, music groves. It was working, and that made it more terrifying than anything the Crucible had ever built. What do you propose? The counselor asked. Greave pointed to the horizon. You let this continue. You make space for it. And when the next disaster hits, these people will be ready, not just with muscle and tactics, but with something your simulations never measured. Which is hope. For the first time in decades, no one in the delegation had a counterargument. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low and the field buzzed with soft lights and laughter, Greave sat beside the fire pit. Kevin glowed blue-green. The auditor read bedtime stories to 3 former warlords. Barkel snored under a pile of pillows. Bubbles performed a one-beast opera to muted applause from a sentient gas cloud. Tveln sat beside him. You know they'll keep sending observers. I hope they do. I've got plans for a diplomacy trampoline. She chuckled. You ever think about why it worked? Because we were never supposed to survive. So we learned to enjoy the absurdity. You're not a leader, Greave. I know. You're something worse. You're a symbol. He stared into the fire. I can live with that. As long as no one builds a statue. Too late. In the distance, Barry unveiled a life-size replica of Greave made from compressed training drones. It wore a sash that read Chief Lunatic of Phase Recess. Tveln smirked. Congratulations. He groaned. I really should have died back in Phase 1. You didn't. He smiled, leaned back, and watched the stars flicker above the newly peaceful chaos. And I wouldn't trade it for anything.